So good morning, everybody. Morning to Friday Club Online. This is your business networking forum. And today we've got a really special guest. We've got Pieter from BeztForex. Peter's going to be explaining to us a little bit about what we can do with our Forex exchange and how to actually get the best rates and deals. So if everyone could mute their mic, and Pieter, I'm going to hand over to you. Please go ahead.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, guys. Yeah, as you guys heard, I'm Pieter Esterhuizen from BeztForex. I'm one of the franchisees. Our model is basically we don't want people, we just want to assist companies and individuals with their Forex needs. And I'm going to start at the basics, just explaining where everything is coming from, and then we can take it from there. So first of all you need to know about foreign exchange. That's the topic, and I'm going to run through the whole process, everything that you need to know. Okay, so first of all, what is foreign exchange? For the oaks that know, I'm sorry, but I just want to run through everything that we can get a bigger picture of everything. So basically, it's the exchanging the currency for one country to a currency of another. And all the currencies are quoted against the US dollar. You'll see the rand is against the US dollar, the pound, euro, all the currencies is quoted against the US dollar. And that's the main currency that's traded as well. Now, if we go a step further, who in South Africa are allowed to deal in foreign exchange? I mean, I'm not talking about all these oaks that's doing this forex arbitrage and all those kind of things, buying and selling currencies. They are not regulated, and we're not dealing with it. We're actually in the regulated space, and the main players in this space is your commercial banks, which is authorized dealers. And they've got an AD license. We as BeztForex come in, we are an intermediary or outsourced dealer. So the main banks got the license, and we work underneath them, and we also regulated by the FSCA and the Reserve Bank. So who will be needing foreign exchange? Now, it's mainly importers, exporters, individuals. There's some stats on that 80% of our GDP is actually imports, exports. So that's a big market for us. That's why we are there. That's why we actually got work to do. Now, on your import side, they mainly deal with goods and services, and they'll have outward payment. So meaning they need to pay funds outwards to another country to receive goods or services. Importers, your exporters, they will receive funds inwards. So they will sell these services or products cross-border to multinational companies, and they will receive inward receipts. And then there's a little bit where all of us can benefit. It's the individuals, and they normally have investments. It's immigration, it's expats, it's working, say in Saudi Arabia, wherever, and they will send money back, and they will pay funds out and stuff. So there's outward flow and inward flow. So that's funds moving around. Okay, now what is the statutory requirements if you go to a bank or an intermediary to actually get an account, and what do you need to comply with? Now, all the banks always have a FICA process, so it's all the FICA stuff that you need to submit. On companies, there is a bit more that needs to be submitted, and there's more requirements. On a company, the company would need to be FICA'd, directors need to be FICA'd, and the shareholders. Companies that import and export need to have a CCN license or an import-export license from SARS, and then all the income tax details, VAT details and stuff. On a company, there's no limits. It's an unlimited. I mean, if you trade and you pay cross-border or you receive funds for services rendered or for stuff that's imported, you can pay out as much as possible. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of rules if you do forward contracts, but we'll get there, where you need to comply on certain rules and stuff. And you'll see there's a few duplications of the SWIFT process, but it's very important that you understand what we use. It's a SWIFT process all over the world. It's an international process that's used to transfer funds. You'll remember with the Ukraine-Russia war, they said, no, they're switching off the SWIFT for Russia, and that's the SWIFT they're talking about. Then on the individual side, it's a bit easier to take funds out, but there's quite a few limitations. It's also in a normal FICA process. They'll need your ID, tax number, and all those kind of things. And then there's limits. Your annual SDA allowance that's allowed by SARS, the funds you can take out or use for travel or stuff, is 1 million annually, and you don't need any approval for that. Then there's another 10 million you can take out. So it's between 1 million and 11 million annually. But for that, you can get SARS approval. Intermediaries like us will normally assist you with the process, or you can use an accountant. They will also be able to assist. And then if you're so lucky and you can take out more than 11 million, you'll need to get Reserve Bank approval, also a process that your service providers can assist you with. Okay, so the basics of the exchange transactions. This is basically the process of how it's done on the system. So as I said, we use the SWIFT system. Now the SWIFT system also make use of a balance of payment, or a BOP, to report a transaction. So as soon as you need to make a payment cross-border for either imports, exports, services, you need to complete a BOP form. And on that BOP form, there's different categories. So it's either import of goods, or there's a lot of, or it's a FDI, but there's special improvement for that. So there's a lot of reporting that needs to be done, and all of the transactions gets reported to the Reserve Bank. And that reporting leg is the responsibility of your ID or your authorized dealer, which is your big banks. So that's why everybody needs to comply, because the banks can get huge fines if they do not comply. The licenses can even be revoked if they don't comply with it. And that's why it's so difficult to make the payments. And that's why you need somebody to assist you with this stuff, that nothing goes wrong. That's actually a specialist. So on inward receipts and outward payments. So remember, we said it's your imports, your exports. So there's an inward flow or outward flow. We use the SWIFT system. The funds can be remitted on spot. What do I mean about spot? So that's normally you get a market exchange rate. That's the exchange rate that you find at on the news in the evening. They'll say, okay, the exchange rate is that for the dollar, the pound, or whatever. So that's your spot rate. Now, for the banks to actually facilitate this transaction, they will add a margin. Okay. So if the market rate is, let's call it 17 Rand, the bank will charge you 17.10, 20, or 17.30. So that's spot rate. And these payments can be done on a manual BOP form. So you physically complete a BOP form with all the details, all the stuff. You've got two signatures. They physically sign the document. You take it into a branch and they pay it. That's normally quite expensive. But all the banks are moving over to electronic systems where you upload documentation and everything is signed electronically. Okay. Once all of this stuff is done, went through the process, there's certain periods you can pay because it's cross-border. It's normally 48 hours, but there is options where they can push it through this the following day stuff. So there's a little bit of flexibility there, and all those payments gets reported to the Reserve Bank normally monthly, so that they can see what inflows, outflows is, and that's important to make sure that there's no terrorist moving money around or money laundering or whatever the case may be. But another thing to mitigate risk, there's a thing called forward exchange contracts, or FEC facilities. That's where you can book a rate forward. So say for instance, you're expecting goods to come in, the lead time is 2 months and you need to pay on shipment, that's in 3 months time. But now you already sold the product, or you already gave a quote to one of your clients, you need to fix that rate at that day so that you actually can plan yourself and make sure that you still make your profit and you don't have any strange fluctuations in the currency. So that rate can be booked in forward. So what happens then is the bank will take the spot rate, which is with their margin, and they will add forward points. And that's normally based on the interest rate differential between two countries. So the interest rates are different. So that determines what the future value of that exchange rate will be at that certain point. And it mitigates your risk for any fluctuation. So that assists, but sometimes it's a bit expensive. You get 3 products there. You get optional, partly optional, sorry, fully optional, partly optional, and fixed terms. And there's certain requirements behind that and certain things you can do with each different contract. Then you need to keep in mind that all the banks will determine the rates differently. So the banks will give you different rates, depending on what they feel the market will do. And this as well will then, as soon as this transaction go through, will also go through via the SWIFT process, and they also use bulk reporting. Now, the question is, what I would normally get is, why would guys use an OAK like BeztForex, that's an intermediary, if we also use the banks? Why is it beneficial? Now, our partner that we use is Mercantile Bank. They've got the AD license. They're part of Capitec, and we use their systems and things. The reason why the people use us is merely because we are also regulated, but there's a bit more skill within our colleagues than there is in the banks. Because in the banks, everybody is going to a call center, and the skill gets lost there. So we are more specialized within the FX market. And we can assist much better and much quicker than your normal banks do, because there's a bigger process to get through to the banks. And you also asked the question, but why would we be maybe cheaper than your normal banks? But I'll get to that and show you exactly a comparison that we did on seeing what our charges is versus the banks. You must remember that we also negotiate with the banks to get our deals so that we can service our customers much better. But if you choose to go with the intermediary, you need to make sure that they are regulated. Now, this is what the credentials we've got as a company. We are a registered company. We've got FSP license. That's very important. You need to be authorized to do certain financial services. We're also part of the South African Association of Treasury Advisors. We also regulated by FECA. We're authorized by the Reserve Bank. That's very important. You need to be authorized, otherwise you can't deal. We're an accountable institution. And the most important thing, make sure that the intermediaries advisors are also FICE accredited, meaning they've written their RE5 exams and they know what they're doing, because they also need requirements and they also need to do their CPDs and all those kind of things. Okay, now this is the comparison we did basically on our cost versus commercial banks. Now you must remember the commercial banks need to make money on the online systems and everything. They make money on each transaction itself. Now our deal that we actually negotiate is that we need to get our customer at the they must pay the cheapest amount of banking fees, and the system must be flexible, and they need to get the best service. We pride ourselves in best service. So if you look at the comparison on payment fees, now we only charge $250 for a foreign transaction. It seems expensive, but it's technically at a bigger value. It's not that expensive. Commercial banks works on a tiered structure, and depends on the size of transaction, the profile of the company, and everything. They will give you a tier, and you can pay up to $800 for that same transaction. Our FX margins is only 10 cents. If you go to a commercial bank and you're not a big corporate or you can't negotiate your rates, you'll pay 20 to 30 cents on the dollar. So meaning if the dollar is 17 Rand today, you'll pay 17.20 to 17.30. And I've checked it all over the market. It's on all the commercial banks, it's the same. And they also go and classify companies as small, medium, and big corporate business. So the small people won't even get close to those rates. And what's nice about if guys deal with intermediaries is that you can still negotiate that rate with us. Plus on our monthly fees, that we don't charge any monthly fees on any of the bank accounts, whereas a commercial bank will charge you a monthly fee on your CFC account, which is your dollar account, on your call account, which is a rand account where you can trade out and buy dollars and sell dollars and all those things. They will charge you system fees. They will charge you for the forward contracts. They will charge you account fees. So there's so many fees. We just signed a client and we worked out that they are currently paying a fifth of the payment fee they're not paying any banking charge. I mean, those banking charges, if you deal regularly and substantial amounts, you can pay up to 30 to 40,000 Rand just on banking charges. They're not paying a cent on that. So if you multiply that over 12 months, I mean, we worked it out for another client, they can save up to 500,000 Rand annually, which is going directly to your bottom line. And plus, if they save 5 cents on the FX margin, they also save on that, and they can either pass that on to the client or whatever. So that is why it's important to go and do your investigation and make sure that you get the relationship with either intermediary or the commercial bank. Now, the other question is, how do we do that? And do you need to change your bank? Now, what's nice about intermediaries, you can get all of this benefit, and you don't have to change your bank. So you can still have your transactional accounts with a FNB, a Standard Bank app, so you name it. And you just transfer your funds to your call account or your transaction account. And once you're ready to pay out, you will be able to do that. Same with the inward funds. So as soon as you receive the funds, the money come in, you convert it, and you can transfer that out to your transactional account. And or you can transfer it out of that call account that we have. Okay. So as I said, why will you choose an intermediary over a commercial bank? They most probably have lower single bank fees. They're very competitive on the exchange rates. The reason is that if you trade with an intermediary, you can negotiate that rate with them. So say, for instance, you normally pay out $10,000 a month. All of a sudden, you pay out $100,000, and we agree to 10 cents. Then we can agree, so okay, let's drop it to 9 cents or 8 cents, whatever the case may be. You've got direct access to the dealing room, because what we do is we actually speak directly to our authorized dealer or our bank, Mercantile Bank, and we can immediately sort out a problem. We can immediately get access to that dealing room and make sure the deals go through. And then also they most probably offer all the hedging and FEC facilities. Okay. So in our case, how do you become a client? I mean, what's nice about us is that we don't have any contracts with the client. So what the intermediary will do is the intermediary will open an account with the banking partner, and that contract is with you and the bank. The only thing is you don't pay any fees to us as intermediary. Some intermediaries work differently. Some charge you for services rendered and stuff. But in our case, you don't work or don't pay any fees towards us. Everything is just in your account, and we make our money out of the exchange rate. We've got a deal where we'll assist you with all your foreign payments or receipts, and we'll make the money out of the exchange rate, which is not very high as well. You go through a normal FICA process. We'll open an international account. That's your call account, which is a Rand account, and if needed, a dollar, pound, whichever account you need. And then you agree to the terms and conditions. And the best thing is as well, everything is electronic. To give you guys an example, if we go to a client, we sit normally once or twice with that client. And then after that, they don't have to come in to sign any documentation. They will go sit in their office. They will sit there behind their PC. They'll click a button if they're happy with everything, and everything is submitted. Our accounts take normally 7 days. Your individual accounts is even quicker. That's 24 hours. You'll have an account. You will be able to transfer funds outside. So it's quick. It's easy. And I always suggest that go and do your homework. Make sure that you're happy. I mean, there's a lot of oaks that are already banking with a commercial bank. And go and have a look at your charges. Go and have a look at what you're paying out and what the charges actually cost you, and then you come back to us. Because the difference is, I mean, we recently chatted to one of our clients, and their biggest issue is they also had to do forward cover and stuff like that. And they couldn't get a hold of the call center within the bank. They had 3 landline numbers. None of those landline numbers worked. And they eventually got hold of them via email, but then you're already 3 days further. And I know sometimes things happen in business and you need to do it quickly. And oaks like us can actually facilitate that process and make it much easier. So yeah, that's me in a short what Forex is about. And yeah, thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Peter. Wow, I've just been educated. I must say, this is something that I think every single company or person who's dealing with foreign exchange needs to look at. So I really appreciate that, Peter. Well done. And I'm sure there are a lot of questions that will be here
Pleasure.
for you. So thanks very much for that. I'm going to stop the recording now. And if any of you would like to get hold of Peter, Peter's going to put his details in the chat. I see there's already, Andres said he needs to talk to you urgently. So thanks very much, Peter. Well done. And thanks for that fantastic presentation.